Hi, my name is Ro Graham. I'm going to be talking about the building of the pyramids of Giza. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the Wadi El Jarf papyrus, and the reason why this is important is because it is the oldest surviving record from Egypt to this time period, and it gives us details that are important to the building of the pyramids. So this papyrus was found at the Wadi El Jarf harbor on the Red Sea. It was found in 2013 and it dates to the end of King Khufu's reign. The individual who was writing this papyrus is Mur. He was in charge of a crew that was getting stone from Tura north and south for the outside of the pyramid. It was the limestone for the casings. They were getting this by boat. Now, another couple important things from this document is that we learned that they were obtaining their food from Heliopolis and that it was being brought down from another member of the crew. And we also have direct confirmation that the noble Enkoff was the director of the Giza pyramid construction during Khufu's reign. Now, next we're going to talk about a different pyramid. The reason why we're going to talk about the step pyramid of Djoser that's in Saqqara is because this was actually the very first pyramid that was ever built. This was built during the early 3rd dynasty, and this pyramid is actually what inspired all of the other pyramids that followed. There were multiple others that were built during the 3rd dynasty. However, none of them were considered true pyramids. The first true pyramid was going to be built by King Sneferu, who was King Khufu's father, and he had his true pyramid was the pyramid at Medium. Now next we're going to look at this map of some stone quarries. So the pyramid complex we're looking at was up here in Giza, and what we're going to look at here is just how far some of the places they were getting some of their materials were. So Tura right here is where they were getting their limestone for the casings. That's not very far. But now down here in Aswan, they were getting granite. That was being used in King Khufu's burial chamber specifically, and he also used it for his sarcophagus. Now, another thing of importance is right here, Fayum, the oasis here. They obtained basalt, which was used on the pavement for where the mortuaries were. So talking about actually building the pyramids, with the people that were building the pyramids, many people have previously stated that they were slaves. However, that is not the case. According to Zahi Hawass, he believes that they were actually volunteers that wished to help with the building of these. However, Salim Ikram believes that at least for 4 months out of the year, it was done by individuals with corvée labor. They were helping out during the 4 months when they were unable to work the land, and they were doing this because it provided them with food, shelter, clothes. They got out of paying taxes, and it was seen as a sort of piety because they were helping with the final resting place for their king. So with the crews, we know again from the Wadi El Jarf papyrus that there was approximately a crew of 40 people on the boats that went to Tura. So that would be a crew of 40 people per boat. Now we don't know how many crews of boatmen there were, but we know that it would have been 40 per crew, and that was based off of what they were given for a monthly basis of food. Now, Edwards believes that there were approximately 4,800 people with hands-on with the pyramid at any given time. He believes that there were multiple teams working on the sides of the pyramid, that each consisted of 50 individuals that would have hauled the stones up, 40 at the base that would have worked, as we see here, on tying them up and putting them on sledges. There would have been 5 up at the top that would have put the stones into wherever it needed to go next to the other ones. And there would have been 1 individual, usually a very lightweight, who would have rowed up with the stone as it was being pulled up, that would be pouring water down in front of it to lubricate it and limit the friction as it was going up. Another thing is that there would have been medical staff on site, and there is some proof to show that that was likely, because in the cemetery for the workers that is nearby, there was proof found in some of the bones being reset after they were broken, so that would show that there was likely medical staff. Now, to talk about the actual Giza pyramid complex. To build the pyramids, the first thing that would have to be done was the site would have to be leveled, and they would have to mark the outline of where they want the pyramid to be. So it is likely that the pyramids were settled in regard to the main sun temple in Heliopolis, considering at this point in time the cult of the sun god was at its height. Now, the first thing that would have been done after this, when they're ready to begin the actual construction, is an underground chamber would have been dug. From here, the north passage could have been used as a portcullis chamber, and the south passage would have went up to the second chamber, which would have been the queen's chamber. At any point in time, should the king have passed before the pyramid was actually completed, either the underground chamber or the queen's chamber could have been used as a burial chamber. If that did not happen and they were able to complete, then the final chamber would have been the burial chamber. Now, we'll notice that Menkaures is actually further away from the others. It's on the southern edge of the Giza Plateau, and it's much smaller than Khufu's and Khafre's. Menkaures' temple was actually incomplete at the time of his death, and it had to be finished by the individual who followed behind his rule, who was believed to be his son, Shepseskaf. So in each complex beyond the main pyramid, there would have been other pyramids as well that would have likely been queen's pyramids, cult pyramids, or mortuary temples. Now at the very top of the pyramids here, there would have been a pyramidion, which would have been a casing at the top that would have been gold or electrum, so that it could have reflected the sun's rays. And then after the 4th dynasty was ended, these temples actually, or these pyramids actually ended up being looted, and the stones were reused for other things throughout the next dynasties. However, despite all this, Khafre's pyramid is still pretty well preserved, and it's actually the best preserved pyramid from this 4th dynasty. Now, another slight difference that we want to talk about here, focusing specifically on Khafre here, and then Khufu's over here. So Khufu, if you can see here on his 3rd chamber, he has got these 2 shafts coming out here. So one was actually made coming inwards from the sky into the chamber, and the other one was actually made coming outwards from the chamber and going out towards the sky. And this is made so that it's coming into like a continuous path for the soul to travel. Khafre's had started, however, it was never completed, and instead a second passage, as you can see here, the second passage intersected with the first and then continued upwards. Menkaures had no shafts, and instead the design was much like Khafre's. And these were my sources. Thank you.